Previous video I talked about what you need to do to exit early game, which is mainly what you're going to have trouble is getting enough of these. I just want to say that everything in my videos is from the perspective of somebody who is not planning to spend money on the game. If you really want to advance and spend a lot of money, the best way to get a lot of these is to join a new server and spend money to make sure you stay on top. And if you're on the top of the rankings, the rewards for that are going to get you a lot of these things that you need to advance. So basically, getting at the top and staying at the top through spending is the best way to get ahead. So I'm going to move past the early game now, and I'm going to explain what it takes to get to the late game. One thing getting to the late game is not wasting resources. And in order to not waste resources, you need to set efficient and achievable goals. That means you need to figure out which advisors you're going to focus solely on them, and don't waste money on, or resources I should say, on advisors that you're not going to end up building. So as a non-spender, you can probably only build one of the Wolves of War. That are these guys, the initial 4 that you can have access to: Kuba, Subutai, Nock, and Jelm. You probably only want to build one of them because it's going to be very costly to get the tokens to upgrade their status. And it's also really hard to get the advisor scrolls for them as a free-to-play player. So it's not going to be very easy to build up one of these guys, and you probably want to focus on only one. And then later on, you'll get access to the queens, which are these 5, I guess. See one of them too? Yeah, I guess there's 5 of them. So they're even harder to build. I would actually recommend, if you're not planning on spending, to not really build these at all. They are a little stronger than the Wolves of War, but it's even more expensive to try to upgrade them because their stuff comes only through events, and usually you have to spend in those events to actually get it. So I would recommend not building these at all as a free-to-play player. You might unlock 1 or 2 of them for collection at some point, but I would recommend not actually trying to focus on building them. As far as I know, at this point, I've only been playing this game for about 2 months, but I think this is going to be the only red status advisor that you're actually going to be able to get as a free-to-play player, but that might change in the future. And one other thing I want to mention is, eventually, like in the really late game, your purple advisors that actually have a consort are eventually going to get stronger than your oranges, because your oranges are capped in how strong they get. You can't upgrade the presence infinitely, you can't upgrade their level infinitely, but for the purple guys who have an advisor, you can pretty much upgrade their consort infinitely, although it gets harder and harder. So at some point, 1 to 2 years down the road, your strongest purples are probably going to outscale your strongest oranges, or at least become on equal footing, at the very least. And if they're on equal footing, it's far easier to star up the purples. So what I'm trying to say is, a year or 2 down the road, it's going to be easier to have a purple as your strongest advisor rather than an orange. So just keep that in mind. So with all the above in mind, my game plan is to start with Kuba for the early game, because he's going to be the strongest and easiest to build in my early game. I'll discard him or stop focusing on him later on. After that, I'll shift into building Chilon because he's going to eventually outscale anyway. And once I get to the point where I've actually managed to unlock a red, her hopefully, through Horde Battle, then I'll start piling all my resources into her when she's unlocked. So I just want to explain why it's important to think ahead like that. So it takes me, I would say, about 12 days to get one of these. Because first you have to get 3 of these for each of these. Okay. I can do that in like a day or less. And then you need 3 of those to get one of these. And then you need 4 of those to get one of these. So it takes me about 12 days to get enough tokens that I can actually make one of these. So using that math, you should probably figure out how many days it takes you to get one of these, because then you can use the math afterwards. So if it takes me 12 days to get one of these, then it will take me 60 days to get one of these, because this takes 5 of those. So 12 times by 5 equals 60. So that's like 2 months. So that's 2 months of grinding just to get one advisor promoted to level cap 350. So you should think every advisor that I want to get to level 350, assuming that your grind rate is similar to mine, is going to take me 2 months of grinding and get the seals for that. And then if you want to get one of your advisors to level 400, which is the max in this game, it's going to take 6 of those. So 60 days times by 6 is 360, which is roughly a year. So essentially an entire year of grinding to get one of your advisors maxed out, assuming you don't spend any tokens on anything else. And that's if your grind rate is similar to mine. If you're top ranked on the server or spending a lot of money, you might get more of these. So that's why I'm only planning on getting my very strongest advisor to max, at least right now. Maybe I'll start getting more of these tokens in the future. Because if I'm going to spend a whole year on it, I'm probably only going to do it for my very strongest advisor and nobody else. The other thing to think about ahead of time is your collections. So you need to figure out how you can most easily activate the top collection bonus for your strongest. So for me, that would be Tomo. So it's really easy to max out the greens, so I can put 5 stars into him. Anyway, I did the math here and figured out what would be easiest for me to get the 16 needed for my top collections to max it out. So that's just something to think about, and it may inform who you want to build later on too. Like originally I wasn't planning on building Borshu, but since I realized I'm going to have to put 5 stars into him in order to max out Tomo later, I should probably plan on at some point building him if I could put 5 stars into him anyway, because he's got a consort already, he's at purple, so if you can put 5 stars into him, I should probably be building him. So by thinking ahead that way, you can modify your plans and figure out what you really should be doing. Alright, so for the second half of the video, I'm going to be focusing on Horde Battle. Horde Battle is a great way of getting extra free rewards, and I highly recommend participating in it as much as you can. It's noon here, Eastern Time. That's when, for my server, the Horde Battle opens. So it just opened. We used some of our lower level players to clear the path to the first level 2 fort, and now we're setting up a rally to take the level 2 fort here. So who we got matched with? We're server 56. Anyway, I'm going to go over the basics first, and then I'll discuss the strategy a little more. So there's a couple of different kinds of resources in Horde Battle. There's your stamina. This is a resource that everyone has plenty of access to, even the weaker players. So tasks that require mostly stamina and not other resources are good tasks for the weaker players in the Horde to take. For example, clearing the paths through the low-level land towards the forts. That doesn't take much squad power, it only takes stamina. So if you're a weaker player in the Horde, that's really a good thing for you to be doing. You should be clearing the paths in between the forts so that your stronger players can beat up on the forts. As a weaker player, you also get 1 free rally flag to start with. So one thing you can do is you can start a rally to harder targets such as the forts, and then pull in your stronger squads from your Horde allies to go with you and take those over. The way I set up my squads is I have 1 squad, which is like my fighting squad, and I put my 3 strongest advisors in it to get as much squad power as possible. And then my second strongest squad is just like a squad that I used when I'm blitzing, when I'm trying to use up as much stamina as possible. And I use my blitzing squad to just quickly take low value targets, and I'll garrison it somewhere when it's done, and I'll have my stronger squad hitting the stronger targets. My third squad is a garrison-only squad. It's just there to earn garrison points. I garrison it and get the passive income from that, but I don't actually use it for fighting, other than defending. So the way combat works in this game is the more squad power you have when you're fighting someone, the more advantageous the results of the battle are, and vice versa. If the defender has more squad power, they're going to have a more advantageous result compared to you. So if you attack a really low power target with a really high power squad, you're going to conquer it without hardly losing any Horde elites. Whereas if you attack a really strong target and your squad power is really low, your elites are just going to get massacred. So in addition to managing your stamina and using that up, you also want to manage not losing your Horde elites too hard. And a couple different ways you do this is try to only attack enemies that are weaker than you, and when you're defending against strong enemies, you should defend together with a lot of allies on the same square so that you can build up your squad power together and keep from being overwhelmed. Additionally, forts give defensive bonuses, so they're a great spot to defend. There's sometimes forts and choke points like this too, so you can prevent enemies from coming over the mountains by holding a choke point there. At some point, we're going to want to go up and take this choke point for defensive measures, but it's more important early on to just bum rush the forts to get all the good land here. So these little white tents you see, that's level 4 land. those are going to give you good first-time capture rewards. The level 3 land also gives decent first-time capture rewards. Level 3 forts give excellent first-time capture rewards, but they won't open until the last, I think it's like the last 6 hours of the Horde Battle or something like that. But anyway, they don't open until the final day of the battle. And the center opens at that time as well. If you're a really low level and weak Horde on a starting server, you're probably not even going to have enough power to take the center at all from the neutrals. But even if somebody can take the center for it, it's really hard to take it back if the Horde holding it is stronger than you. So I'm not going to talk too much about holding the center. That's something you can do if you're strong enough and if you're stronger than other Hordes in the battle. But I'm guessing if you need a guide on Horde Battle, you're probably not one of the stronger players. So another thing I want to cover is the store. So buying these banners is worthwhile if your elite drafting rate isn't very high. But if you've got if you can draft a ton of elites in your drafting, which is based on the strength of your advisors, then the potions are better because they just speed up your drafting rate. So gems I mostly prioritize getting elites with, because the stamina I can always buy with I can always buy more stamina with blue gems. And I usually find that since I'm often up against stronger enemies, I don't run out of stamina before I run out of elites anyway. The most important time to get extra stamina is early in the Horde Battle, in my opinion, because early in the Horde Battle you want to be blitzing forward to grab as much land as possible. There's 2 reasons for that. The more land you have, the higher your Horde influence income will go up, so you'll increase your Horde rankings. And also, if you expand quickly, you can get more of these first-time capture rewards. So it's way more beneficial to get first-time capture than it is to take land back from another Horde. I mean, yes, you deprive that Horde of owning it if you take it back. But I mean, in my opinion, since you're going to win a Horde battle, you're going to face harder enemies the next Horde battle anyway. It's not really that important to focus on winning or losing individual Horde battles. It's more important to just maximize your rewards every single Horde battle you're in, because in the long run, that'll increase your strength the most. So that's how I look at it. Different people might think differently. If they're more inclined to spend money, they might just try to win every single Horde battle. But that's just not sustainable in the long run, because eventually you're going to start matching against somebody who's willing to spend more money than you, and then where will you be at? You'll be spending a lot of money and you still might not win. So I do not think it's a good idea to spend money to win Horde battles. I would say just treat it as farming and get as much resources as you can out of it. Defending in Horde battle, one of the things you may need to defend effectively are the flags. These flags allow your troops to march faster. So you may have your units garrisoned in this fort, for example, and you might see some enemies trying to attack this square right here. And if they're smart, they'll garrison nearby it, wait till nobody's paying attention, and then launch an attack right from the square next to it, because that way they'll have very little march time, so there'll be very little time for you to reposition your forces. But if you do happen to be watching, and you see an enemy weak squad coming in on the square, then you could send your strong squad to garrison that square, and you could speed it up with a flag, so that it gets there and garrisons before their attack lands. And then you'll kind of have, if they don't cancel their attack on time, their small squad will bump into your strong squad, and they'll lose a lot of elites that way. So another thing you may want to do is try to make friends with at least one of your flanks. So if you've got a Horde on this side and you can make friends with them, and they won't attack you, you won't attack them, then on this side you can concentrate both your defense and your attack a lot more, and it'll make fighting whoever you're fighting on that side a lot more efficient. So I do suggest using diplomacy to help yourself out in the Horde battle. I think diplomacy is very beneficial, and I definitely recommend using it. I want to talk a little more. So about the chests. It takes a while before you can get the chest keys, but as soon as you can get chest keys, I think they're a good thing to buy with your points in the store, because you're going to unlock chests throughout the battle, and you want to open them whenever you can, and you may not have keys. So I would say the most important thing to buy is the speed potions for sure for most people. It's okay to have a few of these. It's okay to get some of this. And then eventually you're going to be wanting to buy those, maybe a few of those, and these. And these are good too, because usually you can wait till very end of the battle and then just wager on whoever's about to win anyway, and you'll usually get it right. So you can amplify your tokens that way, and they get converted into Horde points, which you can then spend. Yeah, I would suggest that when you're going to take any really high value targets with your horde, you really should be using it with a rally, because that way, with rallies, more people in your horde can get the first time capture bonus. Only one person is getting the most of the bonus if you only let one person take it. So I suggest taking any high value targets like a level 2 fort, level 3 fort with a rally. Even if you're strong enough to take it individually, just be nice and spread the reward out to weaker horde members. That's what I would suggest. Sniping forts. When these open up and you're contesting it with somebody else, if you're about on even footing with them, it's probably a good idea to let the other horde that you're fighting with weaken it first and then take it from them with a really large rally. You will get one extra rally flag when the center opens for each horde player, so just keep that in mind. It's okay to use your rally flags now. You don't have to save them until later because you will get some later for free. And yeah, so the main idea behind Horde Battle is don't get into fights that you can't win, and try to trick the enemy into taking fights that they can't win if you can. And that's pretty much what it boils down to. I mean, it gets a lot easier to do that if you have less flanks that you're fighting on. So definitely using diplomacy with other hordes and trying to come to an agreement with the other hordes is beneficial if you can. If you want to kind of get a big picture view of what the map looks like, there is a map button, so you can see we're trickling out towards the center. When the middle opens, the map becomes revealed, so you can see what everyone else is doing. So you can figure out who's fighting, who's not, who may be distracted, who isn't. That's helpful. It's important to check the rankings to figure out who's actually active. So right now these two hordes are asleep, but this horde is active. S54, as I mentioned earlier, could be a threat because since they're from the same server, they might work together. Fairy Tail is currently taking the lead, so there's someone to watch out for as well. I suspect, based on the fact that they're from a newer server, S57, and they're taking the lead, that probably means they might have a whale on their team, or at least someone who's experienced the game despite being in a new server, one of the two. So Fairy Tail could be an issue. I'm almost out of stamina, so I'm not going to be continuing this video much longer. I'm just trying to think of a few more things that I could mention. So, rewards preview for individual ranking. If you do manage to end up as #1 ranked in your Horde battle, you get these pretty massive rewards, and that's why I'm suggesting that it's not really a good idea to worry about winning the battle itself too much, because if you don't win the Horde battle, you'll stay in lower ranked fights fighting against weaker hordes. And if you're fighting against weaker hordes, it's going to be much easier to come in rank 1 individually, and you'll get way more colossal rewards. So I would say, yeah, do not worry about winning the overall Horde battle that much. Just worry about maximizing your rewards in each individual battle. And if you don't win, that's fine, because you'll just face an easier horde to crush the next time around. So that's really how I suggest that you think about it. If you have weak squads that you're worried about being picked off by stronger enemies, make sure that when you finish spending your stamina, you leave them garrisoned in a fort somewhere, and I suggest that your horde mates do the same. If you store all of your weak squads together in a strong fort, it's way harder for the enemy to pick them off, and so you're less likely to lose elites. Personally, I don't think that I would worry about defending land that you've captured too much from other hordes. After you capture it the first time, you get the bonus. Yes, letting other hordes take it will reduce your income, but I don't think it's a good idea to waste elites trying to defend hard-to-defend land. If you see a weak enemy attacking, go ahead and defend it with one of your strong guys, and you can make them lose elites. But it's not worth burning through your elites defending land that you don't really need. I think it's better to let the enemy lose their elites attacking your forts if possible. Yeah, and whenever possible, try to use your strongest squad to take stuff. If you're using your strongest squad to take things, you're just going to burn through less elites that way. So it's a good idea. That's pretty much all I have to say about Horde Battle. I mean, it's really just about paying attention to what's going on, trying to make the enemy take disadvantageous fights while avoiding disadvantageous fights yourself. Not running out of elites, using your stamina whenever you can. And especially when Horde Battle first opens, if your horde is very active when it first starts and gets a lot of land early, that'll boost up your income early, and you can take an early lead, like we just passed Fairy Tail because our horde's coming online. Now, even if we don't end up owning the center, If our income is way higher in the early game, we'll probably still make it to top 3. So definitely being active early in the battle, that's very key. I don't have much more to say, but if you have specific questions about Horde Battle, feel free to ask me and I'll be glad to answer them. That's all for now.